so that we all know that I'm not making this up. People think I make this stuff up all the time. It says, page 4, right in the middle, threat of arrest. Under a separate provision of the Gun Control Act, any person who knowingly violates the section of the Gun Control Act amended by the Brady Bill shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for no more than 1 year, or both. So that's what we're looking at. And so when I left that meeting, I was really, really disappointed, because none of the other sheriffs, and every one of them hated this bill. They all hated what was going on. We all said the federal government can't tell us what to do. And they went around the table and they said, okay, what are we going to do about this? And I said, we ought to just tell those 3 agents to get back in here and tell them to take this little booklet document back to Washington, D.C. and tell them to tell Congress to shove it up 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We're not doing the Brady Bill here. And the other sheriff said, oh, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. So I said, you guys, we have to say no here. They can't tell us what to do. If we acquiesce and show them that they can tell us what to do, they're going to think that they're our boss and they can do this anytime they want. Well, I was the youngest sheriff in the state of Arizona at the time, and I really wasn't trying to push my weight around. And so now I have a 2.5-hour drive back home. And I keep saying, what am I going to do? All the other sheriffs are going to go along. Where does that leave me? And I kept saying, one, I'm not going to go along. I'm not going to comply. The second one I said is, I'm not going to quit my job. What would I tell the pretty little blonde girl? This time I really am quitting? No. I'm not going to quit my job, and I'm not going to comply. By the time I drove into my hometown of Thatcher at the time, Thatcher, Arizona, I decided, and it hit me really hard. It scared me. I'm going to sue my own government. You think I was smiling? I was shaking and sweating. The thought of it scared me to death. I walk in the house and I'm so preoccupied and obsessed with this decision that my wife comes up to give me a hug after not seeing me all day and welcoming me home. I just blurted it out. I said, I'm going to sue the federal government and there's nothing we can do about it, and they're going to squash me like a little pumpkin seed, and I hope you'll go along. And she goes, don't I get a kiss? And I said, yeah, but I really am going to sue the Clinton administration, the federal government. This is going to cost us everything. I just feel that. And she goes, well, what do you mean by everything? I says, well, career, home, job, you know. She goes, well, we really weren't looking for this job when we landed it. And I said, I'll take that as a yes. She goes, I don't understand all what you're talking about, but I understand you, and you do what you got to do. If she had said no, I guarantee you I wouldn't have done it. And she was kind of like an Abigail Adams, and has been for about 35 years. And so the next day, what do I do, folks? I'm going to sue the federal government. What do I do? I wasn't a member of any group. I wasn't even a member of the NRA. I didn't hunt. I still don't hunt. But if you go get some venison, I'll be happy to have you bring it to my house. Especially elk. Love elk. But I just never was into hunting. I'd rather play tennis or go golfing. Okay? But my undersheriff was, and he walks in the room, he walks in my office, and I said, hey, Mike, you're a member of the NRA, aren't you? And he said, yeah. I said, do they have a toll-free number where you can call and get advice? He said, well, they have a toll-free number. I don't know what you're going to get. I've never called it. I call it, and I get passed around and almost hung up on, you know, I'm waiting. Finally, I get in the office of one Richard Gardner. He's a lawyer for the NRA. And I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, Sheriff, we've already been preparing the paperwork on this case, and we've been praying that you would call. And I said, really? He said, we've been working. I said, you don't even know me. And he goes, we need a sheriff. We don't have standing to sue on this case. And I said, great. We're finally going to prove that the right to keep and bear arms to the entire nation, we're going to prove that it is a God-given constitutional right that government cannot infringe. Where did I hear that word before? It shall not be infringed. Wow. And he said, calm down, Sheriff. We're not suing on the Second Amendment. I said, what? I said, you're the NRA. That's what we do, right? That's right to keep and bear arms. That's what this is about. He goes, you don't have standing on the Second Amendment. He said, law enforcement is exempt from the Brady Bill background checks. I said, so what paperwork have you prepared? He goes, we're preparing it on the issue of states' rights, state sovereignty, the 10th Amendment, the one that says the federal government can't tell state officials what to do. And I go, ha ha, I like that. That's what I told the other sheriffs. They can't tell us what to do. I said, great, let's get started. I said, oh, one problem though. I said, I want my own lawyer. They said, that's great. We'll work with your lawyer. And I said, can you recommend one out here in Arizona that knows the Constitution? He said, yeah. His name's Dave Hardy. He lives in Tucson. He used to work for us. I said, great. So I called Hardy. I retained him as my personal lawyer on this case. He worked with the NRA lawyers. And on February 28th, 1994, the very day the Brady Bill took effect, a small-town sheriff from Safford, Arizona, filed in Tucson Federal District Court a lawsuit against the Clinton administration and against my own government, telling them they can't tell me what to do, that the Brady Bill or 20 more like it are not going to have any place in my county, and that I would not go along. However, you remember that little thing about page 4 here where it threatened to arrest me? What am I going to do about that? Maybe they're going to come arrest me. So we filed an injunction. And what is an injunction? It's like an order of protection. So Bill Clinton actually got a legitimate order of protection from me that the federal government could not touch me. So he and Janet Reno could not come and arrest me at 2 o'clock in the morning with my wife and kids yelling, where's Daddy going? And so we got it. But to stop the injunction and to stop the embarrassment that this was going to cause the Clinton administration, Janet Reno wrote a memo to the judge saying the part of the Brady Bill that threatens to arrest people who failed to comply was only intended for the gun shop owners, not for the sheriffs or the Cleos. And Judge Roll told her that you don't get to change the law just because you write a memo. Yeah. So we got the injunction. Now remember, I'm the only sheriff in the country. I'm all by myself at this time. The only one. Then a few weeks later, Sheriff Prince from Montana, Ravalli County, joins the lawsuit. And then Sheriff Coog from Texas, Sheriff Romero from Louisiana, Sheriff McGee from Mississippi, Sheriff Frank from Vermont, and Sheriff Anders from Wyoming. That's it, folks. 7 sheriffs out of 3,100 join this fight for state sovereignty and local autonomy and for the preservation of the office of sheriff all across this country. 7 put themselves on the line for this, and boy was I glad others joined, because now I felt so much protected. The federal government couldn't come after me unless they went after all 7. And so we all won at the district court case. We all won at the district level. All of us, except Sheriff Coog from Texas. How do you lose a state sovereignty case supporting the Second Amendment in Texas? Boy, did he have the wrong judge or what? He lost. However, Sheriff Prince and I are in the same circuit. Do you know where that is? San Francisco, the 9th. Did we win there? Keep shaking your heads because we didn't even come close. Well, we had a 2-1 split, but we lost at the 9th Circuit, and Sheriff Coog, along with Sheriff Romero, in the 5th Circuit, which is in New Orleans, they made a huge comeback and had a huge victory, and now we have 2 conflicting circuit court cases, or rulings on the same case. And my lawyer told me that that would pretty much guarantee us a